If I would like to arrange these percentages in ascending order, what I need to do is rewrite all these percentages so that their decimal places are lined up and their place values are lined up, and then we can compare them. So we've got 99.8%, we've got 89.9%, 99.9%, 98.8. Right, so given these percentages, all we need to do is eliminate them one by one. So because we are arranging them in ascending order, which is from smallest to biggest, because if we ascend a mountain, you go from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. Right, so we are looking for the smallest number first. So what we need to do is first consider, we work from left to right, so let's first consider the tens. So we know that 8 tens is definitely going to be smaller than these 9 tens. So 89.9 is definitely going to be our smallest number, so that will be the first number in our sequence when we order them. Right, then we can cross that out because we've dealt with that one. Now let's look for the next number. We know that these 9s are all the same, so we need to look at our units. We now need to look for the smallest unit to find our next number. So 9 and 9 are the same, and 8 is smaller than 9, so this number will be next in our sequence. So 98.8, which is over there, is the second number in our sequence when we are arranging in ascending order. We now need to cross that out and look for our next number. So we have a look at our tenths column, because our 9s there are the same, and we see that 8 there is smaller than 9, so this will be the next number. So 99.8 over there will be the next number, and then obviously we've got our 99.9 over there. So we need to remember that when we eventually rewrite these numbers in ascending order, we need to go back here and need to have a look. Okay, so we had 89.9%, remember your percentage sign. Then we had 98.8%, and then we had 99.8%, and then we had our 99.9%. And that is arranging these numbers in ascending order. This will be our answer. If I would like to arrange these fractions in descending order, I need to arrange them from the biggest fraction to the smallest fraction. So we have got two options of how we will do this. We can either convert each of our fractions into an equivalent fraction out of a common denominator. So we need to find our LCM of all these denominators, and then we can compare our numerators. And the second option is to convert each of these fractions into a decimal and then compare and order those decimals. So let's have a look firstly at finding common denominators. So we first want to have a look to see if each of our fractions are in its simplest form. So we see that 6 over 8 can actually be simplified to 3 over 4. So that's the fraction that we will work with for now. So we need to find a common denominator for all these 5 denominators. So 3, 8, 12, 6, and 4. We need to find our LCM, or our lowest common multiple. And we will find that that is equal to 24. So for each of our fractions, we need to create an equivalent fraction out of 24. So I multiplied my 3 by 8 to get 24, so you do exactly the same to your numerator. So 2 by 8 is 16. 8 by 3 gave me 24, so 3 by 3 is 9. 12 by 24 gave me 12 by 2 gave me 24, so 7 by 2 gives me 14. And then I times my 6 by 4, so I times my 5 by 4. I times my 4 by 6 and my 3 by 6 to get 18 over 24. Right, now that we have our common denominator for each of our fractions, we can just compare our numerators. So because we are going in descending order, we would like to go from the biggest number to the smallest number. So let's look, we've got 20, so that is our biggest. And then we've got 18, 16, 14, and then we've got our 9, which is our fifth number. Right, so because we were asked to convert or order these fractions at the top in descending order, we cannot use these fractions that we used merely just to help us work out the order. We cannot use those fractions in our answer, so we need to convert these fractions back into our original form. So especially here, when we simplified, we will be using 6 over 8, not 3 over 4 as well. So our first fraction in our when we are ordering in descending order is going to be 5/6. Then our second fraction will be 6/8. Our third fraction is 2/3. Our fourth is 7/12. And our fifth is 3/8. So this is our answer when we are ordering these fractions in descending order. We are now going to have a look at exactly the same fractions, and now we are going to use decimals to order or compare these fractions instead of finding our common denominator. So again, we are going to order them in descending order, so from biggest to smallest. And what we are going to do is we are going to convert each of our fractions into a decimal. So we need to remember that, so for 2/3, that is going to be equal to 2.000 divided by 3, because we cannot get 3 into 10, 100, or 1,000. So 3 into 2 goes 0 times, we bring up our decimal point, and then there's 2 left over. 3 into 20 is 6 times, remainder 2, 6 times, remainder 2, 6 times. So we've got a recurring number there. So our 2/3 is equal to 0.666, because let's just use 3 decimal places for now. Let's then have a look at our 3/8. 3/8 we can actually get into an equivalent fraction out of 1,000 by multiplying our 8 by 125. So we multiply our 3 by 125. We end up with 375 over 1,000, which is equal to 375.0 divided by 1,000. So we bring in 1, 2, 3 decimal places, put in our placeholders, and we've got 0.375. We then have a look at 7 over 12. So 7 over 12, again, we will do in our division house. So 7 over 12. 12 into 7 doesn't go. We put a 0 there to indicate that and bring up our decimal point. 12 into 70 fits 5 times. 5 times 12 is 60, so we've got a remainder of 10, so we carry our 10 over. 12 into 100 fits 8 times. 8 times 12 is 96, so there's a remainder of 4. 12 into 40 fits 3 times, and let's just leave it as 3 decimal places, so we've got 0.583 there. Right, so let's have a look at our 5/6. 5 over 6. And again, we're going to put our 5 inside our decimal house, inside our division house and divide it by 6. 6 into 5 goes 0 times, bring up our decimal point, and we've got 5 left over. 6 into 50 goes 8 times, because 8 times 6 is 48. We've got 2 left over. 8 into 20 goes 3 times. 8 times 6 is 18. The difference between 18 and 20 is 2. 6 into 20 again goes 3 times, and there we've got our 3 decimal places. So that's 0.833. Right, let's squeeze in our 6 over 8, but remember our 6 over 8 is equal to 3/4 because we've simplified that. So 3/4, we should know this off by heart, but 3/4 we can multiply our 4 by 25 to get 100, and then we multiply our 3 by 25 to get 75, and we end up with 0.75. We can put in a 0 there so that we've also got 3 decimal places in our 3/4 as a decimal. Right, and now all we need to do is compare our decimals. So let's eliminate them one by one, going from biggest to smallest. So the biggest number we can see is our 0.666. I beg your pardon, is our 0.833. So that is our biggest number. Then we've got our 0.750. Then we've got our 0.666. Then our 0.583. And then our 0.375. So when we are ordering these fractions in descending order, again, what we need to remember is we cannot then in our answer order them in our decimal format, because that was merely just to help us work them out. What we will now do is convert them back into their fraction form. So our first number was 5/6. So 5/6 is our first number. Then our second number was 3/4, which was our 6/8. So 6/8 would be next. Then we've got our 0.66 recurring, which is our 2/3. So 2/3 is third in line. Then we've got our 0.583, which is our 7/12. And then obviously we have our 0.375, which was our 3/8. So if you go back to the previous video, you will see, or the previous example, you will see that the order will be exactly the same, whether you worked it out using decimals or whether you worked it out using your common denominators. If we would like to order these decimals in ascending order, so from smallest to biggest, what we need to do, very similar to how we worked with our percentages, we just need to line up all our decimal points and then line up all our place values, and then we compare these decimals. So we've got 4.543, 5.443, 4.443, 5.543, and 4.554. Right, so what we need to do here is work from left to right. Let's first work with our units. So because we are working in ascending order, we first need to find our smallest values. So we can see that the 4s in our units column are obviously the smallest. So we then need to have a look at our tenths place value. So let's just move this 4 further into our tenths place value. So now we need to have a look here to see which of these numbers in the tenths column are smallest. So we can see here that those two 4s are smallest, but because we know that 5 is bigger than 4, this number will be our smallest. So let's just write it out straight away. 4.443 is the smallest number. Right. So now let's have a look at the next number. So we're still working with our 4s because those are smaller than our 5s. Then we look in the tenths column to get a 5 and a 5. And those two 5s are equal, so we need to go into the hundredths column. And we see that that 4 is smaller than that 5. So this will be the next number. So we've got 4.543. Right, and now what we can do is just cross those two numbers out, which we already did for that first one, just to indicate that we've already dealt with those. So now obviously this number is going to be the next because that's the next number that has a 4 in the units column. So we've got 4.554. Right, so we've dealt with that one. Let's now have a look at our 5s. So we've got 5.4 over there, and we've got 5.5 over there. So obviously this number is going to be next. 5.4 is smaller than 5.5. And then obviously we've got our 5.543. So there is our answer when we are converting or ordering these decimals into ascending order. If I would like to convert these fractions, decimals, and percentages into ascending order, or I would like to order them in ascending order, what I need to do is first convert all of these fractions, decimals, and percentages into one form. So let's choose to go with decimals. We are going to convert each of these percentages and fractions into decimals, and we've already got our 0.45 in the decimal form. What you can do is also create each of these or convert each of these into a fraction and then get a common denominator and then compare your numerators. So that would also work, but because these fractions are quite simple to convert into decimals, let's work with decimals. So 42% is equal to 0.42 as a decimal, because 42% is equal to 42 over 100. Then we've got 3/8, and 3/8 is equal to 0.375, because that is 375 over 1,000 as an equivalent fraction to 3/8, and 375 over 1,000 is equal to 375 divided by 1,000, which is equal to 0.375. Our 2/5 is equal to 0.4, and that is because 2/5 is equal to 4 over 10 as an equivalent fraction, and 4 over 10 is equal to 4 divided by 10, which is equal to 0.4. We've then got our 0.45, and that is just 0.45. And then we've got a half, which is very simple, 0.5, because a half is equal to 5 over 10. And 5 over 10 is equal to 5 divided by 10, which is 0.5. Right, so if we just put in some placeholders here, so that we have got, let's just line these up a bit better. So 0 and 0, 5 and 0, and 0 and 0. So now we've got 3 decimal places for each of our decimals, and we can then compare the decimals in the place values. So if we have got 0.420, each of our decimals has 0 noughts, so we can just have a look at our decimal places, and we can almost pretend that like those are whole numbers. So we've got 420, 375, 400, 450, and 500. So we are going in ascending order, so we need to see which is the smaller decimal. So we can see that 3 is the smallest in our tenths column. So 0.375 or 3/8 is going to be the first number that we write down. So there's our number 1. So we've now dealt with our 0.375. The next number will be 400, which we've now dealt with, which is our 2/5. So that will be the next number. Then we've got 420, which is 42%. So that's our third number. And then we've got 450, 0.45 over there. And then we've got our half. So 0.5 or our half is the biggest number. Right, so ordering these fractions, decimals, and percentages in ascending order, we will have 3/8 first, then 2/5, then 42%, then our 0.45, and then our 1/2. If we need to replace the star in a certain question with smaller than, bigger than, or equals to, we need to consider both numbers and make sure we first get them into the same form before comparing them. So if we have got 3/5 and 65%, what we need to do is get 3/5 and 65% into the same form. So either get 65% into a fraction and then get an equivalent fraction between those two in order to compare the numerators, or we can convert 3/5 into a decimal, and I think that might be the easiest. So on the side here, let's do 3/5 into a decimal, which is equal to 6/10, and 6/10 is equal to 6 divided by 10, so 6.0 divided by 10, bring in one decimal place, and we've got 0.6. So we can now have a look at 3/5 and see that as 0.6 or 0.60, and then compare that to 65%, and 65% we can rewrite as a decimal as well. 65% is 0.65 because it's just 65 over 100, which is 65 divided by 100. So as you can see, we can now compare our decimals, and 0.60 is smaller than 0.65 because it has this number, 0.65 or 65%, has 5 hundredths more, or is 5 hundredths, has 5 hundredths more than 0.60 or 3/5. So therefore we use our smaller than sign. I remember that the arrow, this point here, will always point to the smaller number, and the wide open mouth over here will always point to the bigger number. Right, so that's our first example. Let's have a look at another one. 0.18 compared to 9/50. So we could have a star here, or we could just have a blank space. It just depends on how the question is asked. So again, what I recommend we do here is convert our 9/50 into a decimal, because 9/50, let's do it on the side, 9/50, we can get into an equivalent fraction out of 100, which will be 18/100, and 18/100 is equal to 18 divided by 100, so that will give us 0.18 as a decimal. So we can now look at 9/50 as 0.18, and we're comparing that to 0.18. What we can see is that they are equal. Right, let's have a look at another example. 87.5% compared to 9/10. Right, so what we would like to do here is, again, we've already got a percentage, and a percentage is very easy to convert into a decimal. We've just got 0.875. and 875 compared to 9 over 10. 9 over 10 is quite easy to convert into a decimal. We just say 9 over 10 is 9 divided by 10, which is 0.9, and which is our bigger number. 0.9 is definitely bigger because we can put in some placeholders there, and 875 is smaller than 900. So again, we put our smaller than sign there, and our big mouth here is facing towards the bigger number, so that's great. So 87.5% is smaller than 9 over 10.